Alright, so I'm getting real close to starting the car up, and of course you can see the intercooler tank is still off, and I did that so I could get to the tensioner and get the belt size right and everything, and I'm still deciding which belt to run with the new alternator that I end up getting depending on how big the pulley is on it and everything, but it is able to start and run now. And so I wanted to practice on this extra harness that I had. This is the battery terminal connection, and it had this nut on the back side, and I drilled until it actually fell out. It was fastened in there pretty good, but I drilled it out. And this is what I want to do because the factory harness, even though I love these stock ones with the 8mm bolt, I need the bottom half of it that's connected here. I want that to all stay connected and then just cut it off here so that that can all be connected onto the new post that I got for the car. And as far as the intercooler tank is concerned, I put some WD-40 on the spring. These springs get kind of rusty. I had done a video earlier on how I painted this area and cleaned it up, but anyway. So next order of business was to get this thing out, and so it has these little clips on it that hold the bolt from coming out. So you pull those out, you pry them away from the bolt, and then it can come all the way out. And that's what I did with the other one when I practiced. And then I put an old towel in here so I could drill this thing out and not get metal shavings in the engine. And so now I have the new connection here. So this is the wire that's coming from the pumps, and it's going to this new connector that I have. And to put it together, it has this little sleeve that goes onto the power wire for the fuel pumps. And then that goes into the fuse. And you'll crimp that down. Here's the fuse, and so it's going to go in that hole. And I'm sorry that I can't see very well, but there we go. So that goes in there, and those threaded studs on top are all threaded out, and those will crunch that middle sleeve that we were looking at. And there's even O-rings here because it's supposed to be waterproof. So there's with one side on the right is threaded down, the other wasn't, so it's ready to go. And the other side is going to connect to the battery, and so I had to cut it to just the right length and use these special ginormous crimpers that my dad had for the stuff he used to do with aviation. And so I had my wife help hold it while I crunched that thing down, and then I put heat shrink on it. So here it is all together. It looks really good, and it's all tight, and everything's ready to go. And I can even add more to it if I need to. But anyway, so that was really the only thing I needed. So I got everything plugged in and ran fuel to the pumps, but this tiny fitting on the bottom was not threaded in all the way, and so it did drip a little bit of fuel. And since this is a full return system and it's now powered by the regulator in the box in the trunk, it will now cycle fuel through the whole system back to the fuel pumps. And so this would leak even with the car not running as long as the keys turned, because it had power to the pumps and it was circulating through the whole system. So I snugged that up and it worked just right. Everything was plugged in, and now you can hear the pumps. You can even hear the fuel going through the regulator here. And so now it was time for the first startup. And you'll tell on this first startup that the car doesn't really have fuel and all the injectors or everything. It'll run a little bit rough, but it did fire up on the first try. Alright, now let's try this again. And now you'll hear there's actually a loud noise. It is the air intake that makes this noise. You'll hear what I'm talking about. So I'm making sure that there's no leaking fuel injectors or regulator or AN fitting or anything. Everything looked great. I couldn't tell that that noise from the cone filter was where it was coming from, and I thought maybe I had a vacuum leak or something, and so obviously shut the car off, inspected everything, but then I came to find out that that's what it was. And even though these VMPs are supposed to come full of oil from the factory, I did inspect that because somebody told me that on their car it didn't have oil in it and it ruined the supercharger, and they had to take it all off and send it back in. And so while I had the car up after the startup, I wanted to change the oil, so I went ahead and changed the oil on the car, and it came out really nice and clean. I haven't changed it since I've owned the car. The previous owner had changed it recently before I bought the car, so now it's time to get it out for its first drive. And in case you didn't catch the last video, the car's on a base tune, so I can start it, drive it, make sure it's not leaking anything, but I'm not going to get into boost or anything. I am going to check the bypass valve, so I'll rev it up a few times and stuff, but nothing crazy. And this is also very exciting for me because I just installed the new cat back and everything. I haven't even heard it run yet with it. So here's checking the bypass valve. So everything turned out pretty well. I had that little fuel leak from the regulator, but that was just because it wasn't threaded in on the bottom all the way. That was just a simple little mistake. And I think it came that way from 4 innovations, and that's fine. It's just something that I didn't know. Maybe they thought I was going to put something in that plumbed fitting, but anyway, just took the regulator off and fixed that. That was the only problem. It started right up and it runs great. I haven't found any leaks at all. I've been checking it like crazy. I drove it around the block. I took the car to Danny Johnson's house and we went for a drive, and it was nice. We didn't get into boost or anything. We just made sure the bypass valve was working. We just enjoyed a nice little drive in it, and everything seemed normal. It actually seemed totally the same as it was before. Obviously, I haven't really changed anything else about it. The exhaust sounded a lot better. The problem is I wanted the new alternator for the car for the dyno tune, and they told me now that it was going to be a couple more months of waiting until they got the parts to make it. So I canceled the order on that. I'm going to try to get a different brand, one that Danny Johnson has on his Cobra, a really nice one. And so we'll see how that works out. I'd like to have that for the dyno tune, and the tuner in Vegas is very busy, and so I might not get into the dyno for a few weeks anyway. and on top of that I would like to have cooler air, and that's coming here. We're getting into the fall, so we'll have colder air from the dyno. So all those things are working out nicely, so I'll be able to just tinker with the car a little bit here and there, get everything ready for the dyno tune, get the belt size, everything situated, the new alternator on the way. And if I don't get the alternator, it's fine. I'll have the car tuned the way it is, and the pulley size combo seems to be fine for the belt. It is a little bit tight, but it shouldn't have any belt slip anyway with the stock lower and the 3.0 upper. So that's the update of the car. I'm very excited that I can do all this, and it was really fun to start this up, and it's actually even my birthday today, so I was able to start the Cobra on this big build on my birthday, so I was really happy about that. So thanks for watching, everybody. I'm glad to share this with everyone. This is very important to me, and I know a lot of people enjoy seeing this as well. And stay tuned for more updates on this, the other cars, the Mustang stories, and the dyno tune coming soon for this car.